There we are. Hey. Oh, So today I will begin with a private message. Then we will talk a little about the previous attributes that we have been discussing over the last few weeks, the healing list, and then into the attributes which will involve movement. So let us begin. A private message first, and this is for Matthew. Matthew, you do like to consider the bigger complex issues of life. And once in a while, I provide you something to contemplate and to think about. If you can spend time in contemplation on this suggestion, then it will give you further ground for understanding all other suggestions that have been made and the way that life will work in terms of unity. So contemplate this, please. That there is only one life being lived. There is not billions of lives, but one. Rather like when you think of the human body, there are many millions of cells which start and come into life and then end and go out of life. Could this not be the same for the human race? That there is one life being lived and not many lives being lived. And this involves you looking at the viewpoint of life through the eyes of the individual or through the greater viewpoint of standing back. And therefore, there is one life, there is unity, and all beings are interconnected and play a role within that singularity. Please contemplate and see if you agree. You'll find other messages which will link to this one. I will leave that with you to think about. Over the last few weeks, we have been talking about some of the heavier attributes of the mind. And these attributes, they're like despair and grief, hopelessness. There is also anger, shame. All of these tend to feel like a heavy blanket placed over the individual. So heavy that the individual may not be able to move and feel like they are drowning in their own grief or despair. Now, of course, there are many levels of each of these attributes, from the heaviest to the lightest. And if you think of just one, let us call it grief. When one is so bound in grief, the heaviness of it seems so oppressive that to live the daily life becomes very hard work. And here they may need assistance from an external source to help them to see either clarity or to gain resolution or to move past their trauma. There is a spiritual understanding of this. And if I use just three attractive parts, attractive attributes that grief may use, then you'll see that there is a bridge between the heaviness of these heavy attributes belonging to the lower mind and an ability to step away from them into higher mind and to leave them behind. As I said, this may need assistance, but it also will need some clarity. So when one is caught in this attribute of grief, they are clinging to past, to an event. And they are looking right into the past. And this grief occurred in the past, of course, or the event did. And they also seek to undo whatever occurred. So they're reviewing the event, looking into the past, and they are seeking to change whatever it is that happened. And there are many more layers to this. If one got true assistance, perhaps from someone spiritual or from an organization, or maybe from one who is wise, they then would receive advice that rather than looking at past events and seeing them, they would undertake the practice of letting go. When they look into the past, they would undertake a practice of being present or being in the present moment with mindfulness, maybe. And rather than seeking to change or undo an event, they would seek acceptance. Now, one is very much of lower mind, and one set is very much of higher mind. And yet it is very difficult for one person undergoing this extreme of guilt to undertake the spiritual practice. Hence a need for further assistance. But if you are experiencing mild levels of grief, then your answer, at least in part, is in the words that I have spoken. You should let go, you should be present, and you should accept what has happened. Very easy to say, but not always easy to do. So here, the bridge between the two minds, or the two parts of the attributes of grief, that bridge needs to be in the form of either a spiritual practice, a spiritual organization, or even a spiritual guide or teacher, which will keep you focused on the true qualities that you must need. And then the heaviness will start over time to become light. Now, I do talk here very generally. Each individual case would need to be assessed accordingly. But if you look at your life, you will see some degree of grief within your life. Maybe grief from your youth, that you wished you still had your youth. Maybe grief over lost items or assets. Maybe grief over a broken friendship. And these, of course, may be very mild or very extreme. So the importance then is the bridge between the two parts of the mind. Spiritual knowledge, spiritual support, and a spiritual teacher. The teacher may just be a book. It may be scripture. It may be a person. So this is the importance of groups which are working truly towards one cause. That the group supports and provides support to each other member within the group. And then one can at least aim to minimize or work through some aspects that they carry. And if those groups are led by one that knows, or a common aim through maybe scripture, then there can be greater resolution away from their problem. So the teacher, in a physical form, may suggest to the one suffering to be aware, to notice, to see how even in its heaviest and deepest and darkest stages, grief is still transitory. It still passes. There are periods of light within the darkness, which may be very infrequent. But as one can focus on those periods of light with the assistance of the other thing, then of course one may take steps towards their own healing. So the more you undertake your practices of letting go, being present, and acceptance, then there'll be much times in your life where you will ease through your grief processes which are yet to occur. Does not mean that they will not occur, but it means the foundations are created to assist you. When we get to the next part of the talk, you'll see that many of these heavier attributes are based in the past and projected onto the future. And the answer, of course, is to be present here and now. Now, there are many more techniques that one could use, but these are three possible ones. And I do talk generally. And if someone was to come to me with a particular problem, there may be other answers as well. So I encourage you to be present, to accept the past as the past, and to let go of the past. So to give you an example, and this is from the mind, forgive me, the memory of the medium fairly recently. A gentleman was suffering trauma over past events, where a particularly large event occurred for him. And then he had trauma which carried on after the event was concluded, which then led him into abuse of alcohol and also drugs. And he used these substances to support himself to go through or be able to manage his daily life. And he justified the use of these to minimize the pain that was felt. But what was occurring was he was reliving the events of the past and kept the people alive within his mind. and therefore the events continued far longer than where they could have been. In understanding that he was keeping the people involved alive within his mind and the event reoccurring within his mind. When he saw that, the first steps of his healing and release from his trauma could occur. So the mind was trapped in the past. His grief, his shame, his despair were running very strongly through him. And he needed support. What I have detailed to you is but a fraction. There is much, much more that needs to happen. But if you can see it in this brief example, you could see that perhaps you may be doing the same thing. Are you keeping your past alive? Are you projecting the past onto the future? Are you being present or not? Again, there is much to talk about with each of those processes. My words are general in nature, but look at your life and see if it is playing in your life because you are recreating rather than living each day and each moment as if it is your first. So in a moment, we're going to move away from the heavier emotions into emotions and attributes of the lower mind, which will start to involve more movement. You'll understand when we get to that emotion. So perhaps now I can have the healing list of names, please.
Yes, thank you. Natalie and Maddie, Chantel, Michael Caputo, Joy and Dennis, Teresa and Neil, Mrs. Div, Ross, Helen, Howard and Chris, Kathleen and Anne, Stephanie and Claudio, Mitsuki Kai, Helen and Donald Lunk, Maheshwari, Maddie, Douglas, Tim, Lorna, Julie, Carol, Gary, Courtney, Carrie Ann and Jeanette, Nicole, Jill, Britt, John, Don, Dolores, Eric, Stephen, Matthew, Mirabai, Marianne, and Jody, and of course, may all be happy.
So fear is an emotion that arrives fairly commonly, and we have talked about it many times. Now, fear tends to run the Western world. And in fact, much of societies are based on fear. And much of the control that societies may place on an individual can also be fear-based. And because you are surrounded by fear, then it is very easy for that darkness to infect each individual. As you are told, and then it is reinforced, that maybe you are not good enough, and you shouldn't be this or shouldn't look like that. And the fear arises because you are this or that, and you do look a certain way, that you will not be accepted within society and not be good enough. So the fear then arrives within you and then is supported within you, and then your life becomes run or controlled by the fear that you have now gained from an external source and reinforced within yourself. Now, fear can be very strong and is on the border of holding you back and becoming quite a heavy energy. But fear can also be very movement-based, as one may want to run away or do or perform certain acts to alleviate one away from the fear that they are feeling. Fear may be very big and it may be very small. But fear will be in much of your life. And fear, of course, when you look at it, is based on the past. Something that occurred in the past. Maybe words, maybe an event, maybe the loss of something or pain that one then is projecting onto the future. Because this happened then, it will happen again tomorrow or at some other time. I forgot something once. I will forget it again another time. So fear then takes you out of the present moment and only sees the past and an imaginary future. A future that is not based in anything real. But it can be exaggerated, and that future can become darker and darker as one gets hidden or held back by all of these fears which you have brought into yourself and you have promoted within yourself. Yet they are not based on much that is real at all. Now, the simple parts of fear are very cautionary. Be scared of fire. Do not put your hand in fire is just common sense. But the imagining of yourself doing that time and time again into the future has no sense about it at all. And you have lost control of your mind, and your mind is rambling into this imaginary world that never seems to occur. So again, fear can be minimalized by being present. As one is more present, then of course, the fear cannot exist. Fear perhaps originated in the animalistic instincts that humans originate from. Fear for the body. And therefore, this animalistic fear will continue somewhere hidden deep inside you for long periods of time over many, many lifetimes. And then reinforced by family or society will then sprout again and be lived another time. Perhaps in the human life, the first fears are the newborn child who notices the parent has left the room. And the first glimpses of fear may start there, in only weeks or months. But if you look at the fear in its truth, what is its common denominator? And there is a way to understand or resolve this. So you would ask your friend, what are you scared of? And let us say the friend is scared of losing their money. Well, you should ask the friend this question repeatedly. And what would happen then? So the conversation may look like this. I'm scared of losing my money. And what would happen then? We would not be able to afford the rent of where we live. And what would happen then? Well, we couldn't afford to eat and to entertain ourselves. And what would happen then? Eventually, we would run out of saving. And what would happen then? Well, we may become homeless and have to live on the streets. And what would happen then? Or we may become sick and not be able to survive very long. And what would happen then? Well, we may die. Now, this conversation can carry on for quite some time. But you'll discover that if you carry it on long enough, that the root of all fear is the fear of death. Many layers of other fears are on top of it, but the fear of death becomes what rules all other fears. And hence, within the animalistic understanding of world or lifetime, the fear of the body very prominently is also, of course, the fear of death. But one who undertakes some spiritual, maybe a person that has had a near-death experience, then in that near-death experience, they have seen that life does carry on and death is not so traumatic. And one's undertaking the spiritual work to its true understanding can also start to ease or remove this fear of death. And those of you which are practicing mediumship, if your practice is purely, how good is my message, then you have missed the point of the truth of mediumship. But if you took a further step and realize in providing proof of survival, you are proving your own survival beyond death, then mediumship can provide you the release from your fears. But if you edge between how to give a good message and how to survive death, or will I survive death? If you're in the former, the medium may still have fear of death, or may have gone beyond it. So if all fears derive from a fear of death, and then you can lose that fear of death, then over time you will begin to lose all other fears. And life seems to be more a play than a drama. And if you remove more and more of your fears, then there must be an opening to ever increasing amounts of love. Fear being one, if not the biggest block to a spiritual life, once removed, must open more spiritual essence into your life. And therefore, more love must come in. So again, the support within groups, communities, and those truly studying, comprehending, experiencing the non-physical life must naturally mean that their life must become very different. There must be more love, compassion, joy, peace. And as one becomes more grounded in love, then less and less fears will pull the person away, and they make bigger or more trusting decisions. So the true practice of mediumship must be based in finding that proof of I am not the body. I will survive death. Of course, we are using the phrase first find spirit. So fear, although it looks very real and may have a cautionary note to it, is a fear of death. And therefore, love and fear must be completely opposite to each other. And you cannot have true love and fear at the same time. It is either one or the other within your mind. If you watch, you may see that your mind may oscillate between the two, fear, then love, fear, then love. Within even minutes, you will jump between the two. Love calling you to be present, and fear either past or future. So let us say you have a big decision that you must make. How should you make it? Well, let us say fear starts to arrive. You should look at your fear. Is it cautionary? Is it like saying, keep your hand away from the fire? Or is it projecting, creating its own life by saying, you made a mistake in the past and therefore you will make a mistake in the future and life will be worse than what it is now? You see, fear is very much of the lower aspects of mind, and this is where time exists. Time doesn't exist in the highest aspects. And because time exists when fear exists, then fear uses time to project into the future. So first bring your awareness to see what is truly happening. Am I fearful because of my imagination? Or is it true? And then test it. Well, if I change just a little, is that projected fear correct or not? Now change a little bit more. Is that projected fear correct or not? And in time, you can make quite big changes by observing yourself. So the spiritual understanding of fear is the projection of pain in the past onto the future and the avoidance of the present moment. So it is the present moment, the acceptance and the letting go, as we mentioned in the heaviness of grief, which will also aid you. There may be other practices required as well, but will also aid you in making the changes that you wish to make. So one of the greatest things you can study is death. Is it true? What happened? Is there any proof of non-death? Is that proof satisfactory or not? Now, there's no point your mind saying yes, 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 until you've had the experience and deeper understanding of it. If you have not, then you'll be like the medium who says there is no death, but lives in fear of it. And therefore has not really become a spiritual person at all. Just works with spirit for their working day. So the secret is first to observe, to see, to watch yourself, to witness what these emotions are, how they come up into your mind, and how then you either they affect your body or your mind or your life. Are you scared of death? Do you believe in the body? Can you experience life outside of a body? In which case, where is death then? You hear my words often when I talk about life after death, immortality, the eternity, the life of spirit, etc. My words are always a reminder to you. The reminders are useful, but your work is important. Is fear going to rule your life tomorrow? If it is, it'll rule it the day after and the day after. If you are lucky enough to find your source of love deep within you, which you may think is a person or place or an event externally, but it is deep within. When you truly go there and you dwell in love, Where is fear then? Where is the lack then? Where is the not good enough? My body is not capable or youthful enough. You come out of love to absorb or to live in the fear, which makes no sense at all. Because then you think you've got to scramble your way back into love. So bring love into your body and love yourself. Love your body. Love your mind. Be present with it. And let yourself be that being of love. With love in your heart, you can step beyond fears. Just listen, in case they're cautionary, but decide yourself if they are imaginary or not. So our talk today is fear equals death, and death equals fear. Until next week. God bless you all. Mm.